Live from the Talking Joe Studios. It's Talking Joe.
Talking Joe is on the air.
Hey, it is me, Mark, and welcome to Talking Joe, the G.I. Joe Comics podcast. Today we will be looking at G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue 319, released Wednesday, 6th of August 2025, which at the time of recording was just a couple of days ago. Synopsis of this issue. What does Dr. Mindbender have planned for Serpentor? Plus, the Joe Recon Team versus Blue Ninjas. And nothing is what it seems. So that's the solicit synopsis as appeared 3 months before the issue came out. But was the issue that we read anything like that? Discussing that with me and more is my co-host. It's a Real American Tim. It's Tim Finn.
Hello, Mark, and hello, listeners. Someone fun is joining us. This will only work for viewers. My cat, Marshall, who just a few times this spring and summer has started joining me by napping on the table behind me. I don't know how long for this episode he'll stay. Maybe he'll leave in a minute. Maybe he'll curl up and stay for the whole thing. But for now, I'm going to tilt my camera so that you can see him as well. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, if you're listening, folks, it's just still me sitting with, a white wall behind me and a red backdrop, and then also a cat. Mark, do we have any G.I. Joe news to discuss before we jump into this issue?
Yeah, we've got a little bit. And of course, I'll just remind everyone that this is recorded live as a live stream. So do feel free, if you are watching this live, to chip in with your comments and say hello, just like the Canadian Survivalist has. A little bit of news before we get started. Let me share this with us. So we will be talking about A Real American Hero, issue 319, released August 6th, 2025. But before we do that, we'll catch up with a little bit of news. Frank says, hello, Marshall. Was Marshall named after Marshall Rogers, I guess Field Marshal Montgomery, or any other famous marshals of history?
He came with that name, but we kept it because my wife's mentor in school, an illustrator named Marshall Arisman, had passed away the previous year, and he had known and loved cats, so it was a bit of a sign. Also, it helped that the name he came with was a good name. If it had been like Poofy or something, and one of our teachers had been named like Professor Poofy, we may not have kept it, because I don't know if I can bring myself to call a pet by a name that I don't think is cool. Did I just insult all of our listeners who have dogs or birds named Poofy? I was Poochie. I don't know. I was just pulling a couple of letters out of my head. Can we talk about G.I. Joe?
Yeah, let's talk about G.I. Joe. More greetings from our people watching live. 6'10" Yojo Daddy. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? You'll smash that like button and subscribe, which gives me an excuse to click my little graphic there. Like and subscribe. Thank you, everyone. So a bit of news here. In the week, there was someone else posted a YouTube video. So it was the Son of Jeddah KSA superhero and Comics Hub who released a video called What Made Larry Hama the G.I. Joe and Wolverine Mastermind. And it was some thoughtful questions to Mr. Hama there, an enjoyable interview and a lot of the recap of the greatest hits, as well as to how he got involved in G.I. Joe and all that kind of thing. But he's the Talking Joe listener, viewer, and he said on the back of that Jim Shooter interview that we had, where Jim Shooter had a different recollection of how Larry Hama was given the G.I. Joe writing gig, Jim Shooter essentially said, it was always Larry. He was the only person I ever considered, whereas, of course, we know that Larry Hama has got an interesting story about his recollection of being the last person to be asked. And he gave quite an interesting and thoughtful answer to the question, which was, how does he reconcile those two different memories of those events? And essentially saying, everyone's memory, everyone can be true, everyone can be wrong, everyone's memory is fallible, and it's a kind of a Rashomon, Kurosawa kind of, way of looking at the world that's everything, from a different point of view, people can see things in a different way, and also he sort of questioned his own memory as well. He said that he always he always doubts his own memory and the way that he's remembers particular things as well. So it was an interesting and thoughtful answer to a question that I myself had wondered about asking Mr. Hama when we next talked to him.
Mark, had you and I sort of, between the two of us, reconciled the two differences that maybe Hama thought he was the last person asked to be writer, and Shooter might have thought Hama was the first person he asked to be editor? You and I had this conversation a few months back.
That's my own speculation, that possibly Hama was the first person on Shooter's list, but perhaps that was originally intended to be editor, and then he bumped him up to be writer as well. So and Tom Breefort, when we spoke to him very recently, Tom DeFalco. Oh, sorry, Tom DeFalco. When we spoke to him very recently, his recollection was that Hama had already was in post essentially by the time that he had been brought on, which was very early in the stages of the project being put together as well. So, just interesting, different viewpoints of that origin event. A bit of
it's nice to be established enough, Mark, that other people are now referencing back to this show.
Yeah, so, I mean, I often listen or watch Hama interviews when they come out, because there's he's an interesting guy, and there's inevitably some nugget that he'll talk about that is new. And yeah, I was just listening along, and then there's a shout out to Talking Joe. So it was a nice little surprise as they were talking. The big bit of news in the last week was the announcement of the G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue 26, Hama Files Edition. So these are essentially new sort of facsimile editions of reprints of the original comics, and this issue 26 is announced as the spearhead, the first of the series. So it does sound like they're going to have a number of these. I'll pick out a few bits from the blurb. So this particular issue will hit stores in November 2025. It's a new program launching that celebrates the most iconic issues of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, with insights from the man who knows them best, legendary writer Larry Hama. The Hama Files are reprints of classic pivotal issues of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, that each include a brand new letter from Larry Hama himself, offering behind-the-scenes information and special insights into the most important issues of the series. As the creator of and writer of the issues, Hama will bring an unmatched perspective to these landmark issues, and significantly, they are commissioning Hama to write something for these brand new issues, because, of course, under their contract, it was work for hire. There's no I guess, legal obligation for them to pay Hama for a reprint. So by getting him to do something new, it will be a nice way of recognizing him, but also I think giving him a gig, a paid gig for these particular issues.
Folks who bought the Silent Missions edition of the issue 21 reprint, or who got an issue 21 reprint as a add-on in the big compendium Kickstarter will recognize this idea, because Larry Hama wrote a new letter, a small text piece that was included at the end of this most recent new printing of issue 21, Silent Interlude, right? Mark's holding it up to the camera right now. So in this comic book, facing the final page, instead of the original letters page, there's a 2-column text piece from Hama describing his process. I'll just point out 2 quick things. Mark, you a minute ago used the word facsimile edition, and I do want to reserve that for this format that Marvel and DC, and I guess Image now too, are doing, where they include the original advertisements. The issue 21 reprint from earlier this year, and these upcoming Hama Files comics are not technically facsimile editions because they won't have the original ads. So we could just call them sort of regular reprints, or if they have, a new cover on the B version and a new letter, maybe we call them, deluxe reprints. Also, this sort of full page quote ad, which is a JPEG or a PDF that, went out in Skybound's press release announcement of this publishing initiative this week, which says just announced and has the title and then shows the cover with a slight redesign. Instead of saying Marvel, it says Skybound on the issue 26 cover. What's cool is that this ad credits Mike Zeck and Bob Wyacek as the original cover artists of issue 26. And this is not one of Zeck's flashier covers. And for many years, I just assumed that either Hama drew it or that someone in the Marvel bullpen assembled it, because it seems to be sort of less drawn and more like collaged and typeset, but it is drawn. And, looking at those faces, I do see Mike Zeck's style. This drawing is based on a Larry Hama sketch. He did a layout for this, but it's nice to see this cover that everyone likes and talks about is giving credit to the artists who drew it, Zeck and Wyacek. Not that they were ever taken out of the history here, but lots of times you throw up a cover from the 80s and you don't necessarily say who drew it. And then also at the bottom of this ad, in addition to crediting writer and penciler Larry Hama, inker Steve Lealoha, color artist George Rousseau's, also letterer Rick Parker. And Skybound does not credit letterers on its covers. It credits, writers, pencilers, inkers, and color artists. And some comics in the last 5 years or so have started to credit letterers on the covers. But it's just a small, nice bit here, particularly since we had Rick Parker on the show, and I had him at my store for his graphic novel Drafted, that Rick Parker, a great letterer and writer and artist and cartoonist, gets credit here. I don't know that anyone's going to buy this reprint or not buy it because they're reminded who lettered the original issue. But, people made this stuff. They were paid for it. It took skill. And what's the next news item? There's some Transformers second prints with new covers, but we're going to skip that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just while we're wrapping up, the release date will be November 26th, 2025, and there will be some variant covers. So the cover A will be the one that we all recognize by Mike Zepp and Bob Wyacek. There will be a cover B by Chris Mooneyham, and there will be a cover C foil edition, similar to the kind of the foil editions that we've seen previously on some of these Skybound editions.
So we assume that that'll be a reuse of the cover A, but it'll be shiny.
So. Yeah. Okay. And also looking at this cover, I'm reminded of the fact that we've got these variant covers being used on G.I. Joe in the Energon universe at the moment, which is a kind of this classic view of a desk with files and photos and paraphernalia kind of on the desk as well. And this is one of the classic comics that kind of started that very trend. And as we are live, I'll just say that if you want to have a double bill of Talking Joe and Full Force are switching to a brand new time of 3 p.m., which should be just a little after we finish up. So we sort of try and aim to do these lives sort of fortnightly, every 2 weeks, after the so just shortly after the release of the latest G.I. Joe issues, whether that's ARAH or the Skybound Energon Universe G.I. Joe. So we should be doing this fortnightly when we can on a Saturday, and then join Chris McLeod afterwards for the full force. And another nice little announcement that we have got for this particular week is that we have hit the milestone of 1,000 YouTube subscribers. So thanks to everyone who has subscribed. And now that we are in the big leagues, we're getting a sponsor. So I can reveal to the audience and to Tim at the same time that we have a video we can play from our sponsor, which I will do now.
Nothing beats a Cobra Island holiday. And right now, you can get brainwashed and cybernetically enhanced with your Cobra Casino package. Or travel for free in a Joe Recon Team of 4. Book now with Cobra Island Holidays. Holidays you can't trust.
That's great. Particularly since, travel agents are maybe an endangered species in the last 10 or 20 years with, booking travel online. I'm so glad that we're able, as a bookstore owner that sells paper, I'm glad we're able to support a more old-fashioned analog business.
Thank you for your kind sponsorship, Cobra Island Holidays. So this particular issue, 319, is brought to us from the creative team of writer Larry Hama, penciler Paul Peleteier, inker Tony Kordos, colorist Francesco Segala, flatterer, says, "Oh yeah, your colors are great." Sabrina Del Grosso, letterer Pat Brousseau, and editor Alex Antone. Alex Antone rhymes with phone. Publication design Jillian Crabb. Production design Richard Mercado, and creative consultant is Diana Davis. And while we're talking about Paul Peleteier once again as penciler on this particular art, I was just going to remind everyone that over on his website you can see some of his glorious penciled pages. It's paulpeleteierart.com, I'm not sponsored for this, but they are available at reasonable prices. What I would say would be pretty a good value for these pages. And you can sort of really see some of the nice fine details in the original pencils that sometimes you lose a little bit in the inked and coloured art. So quite a lot of fun just exploring some of the art there.
Lush. Paul Pelletier's pencils I would describe as lush. I see a lot of Alan Davis warmth and really nice balance of dark and light.
Yes, indeed. So I think next up we will look at those things, what they stick on the front of the book. Wrong jingle. This one.
Let's have a look at the covers in the gallery.
Cover A is drawn by Andy Kubert and colored by Laura Martin. And this is fun. This feels pulpy and a little old-fashioned in terms of comics, that it's melodramatic and it's not a fight scene. It's not a battle scene. It's not just a cool pose. This is a bit of a story moment, but it's very much an exaggerated sort of the poster version of a story moment. Dr. Mindbender is on the top half of the cover. We see him from waist up. He's leaning back a little bit. His arms are forward and outstretched. His head is tilting back. He has a smirk. He's underlit. Challenge in posing here: if you tilt his head back too far, you can't see his cool, weird new shiny half head silver dome. So Andy Kubert has a bit of a challenge there, right? Don't tilt that head back too far. In the bottom half of the cover is the Serpentor corpse, or the cloned Serpentor corpse, Mark. And this Serpentor corpse has its arms folded as dead people do, but his snakes, his collar snakes, seem alive, which is a really fun detail here. There is a giant arrow, as in a bow and arrow, sticking out of Serpentor's right eye, the eye on the left. But
it gets
his
a little
other
bit lost in the colors, doesn't it?
Yes. It's the version we're looking at right now is like a JPEG or a PNG file, and it's blue. On my printed cover, it's a bit more dull, but it does somewhat match Mindbender's sort of torso armor. It does stick out a little bit more in front of Mindbender's sort of dark pants. But yes, if it was bright red or bright yellow. In addition to these two characters that are standing there, the background behind Mindbender is a red to orange gradient with no tech or details in the distance. We assume this is inside, although we don't see any lines separating wall from ceiling or any ceiling stuff like, was it 2 issues ago where Mindbender is sort of smiling crazily, looking at us in sort of his like dentist's office with all the red. That was that Andy Kubert one, well, the pink and the red. But between Mindbender and the sort of vague background of red is light blue smoke or steam. And then a bit on both the left side and the right side is some tech, as if we're in a lab. Maybe Serpentor is on some kind of operating table, or
I think it's one of that coffin thing opening. And it's maybe rather than smoke, it's like kind of dry ice or, cooling agent escaping. And what I was put in mind slightly, it was almost like a giant metal coffin and his arms crossed like that. It's almost echoing like a Hama horror of Serpentor in like the metal coffin, like a Dracula.
Not Hama horror, not the writer, Hammer, the British studio. Okay. Very good. Thank you for the correction.
And Mindbender behind him, like Igor or whoever, sort of, he's alive.
Yeah, very good. Serpentor is also underlit, and you can really see it in the inking. So Laura Martin gives some light yellow and white highlights on sort of undersides of Serpentor's arms and his sort of chin. And then in the inking, Adam Kubert is not inking the scale textures on those undersides so that the highlight can hit them, but is inking them on the sort of tops sides. This is a really fun cover, and considering that it's just someone standing there and just someone lying there, it's quite bold, and there's a lot of tension, and that's a thing that really jumped out at me in terms of Andy Kubert's artwork when on the final page, I was looking at the little preview for next month's cover, which I won't talk about until a later episode. But one of the things that I love about Andy Kubert's art is that even when characters are sort of at rest, there's a tension in them. One last bit here, in addition to all the sort of activity of not smoke, but steam, Serpentor's cape is also billowing a bit on the bottom left and bottom right. Fun cover.
Yeah, I was just holding up to the screen my signed copy of there we go, Castle of Frankenstein, which was Hama's first published work.
That's a magazine, and he drew a 1-page comic strip in it, right?
That's right. Yeah, and Mindbender, of course, is in front of the G.I. Joe logo, which Tim absolutely loves. So 10 points to Gryffindor for that touch. So the covers also...
if you're new to the show, during the IDW run between issues 156 to 300, it seemed like the editors or art directors there were allergic to putting like someone's shoulder or a bit of someone's hand or the tip of someone's gun in front of a bit of the lower part of the G.I. Joe logo type, and sometimes it was okay, and sometimes it read like the cover was only 99% done. Cover B here is black and white. The blue star and the red, white, and blue on the logo type are in color, but everything else just looks like Andy Kubert's inks, no color, nothing to add. It's great. Cover C, drawn and colored by Francis Portella, another of these 1 in 10 retailer ratio variant, not retailer variant, ratio variant camouflage covers, wherein part of a character's costume becomes the background without an edge line. In this case, it's Roadblock. He's leaning forward, holding his giant machine gun with an ammo belt spilling out of it. He's not firing it. He's sort of looking concentrated and calm. He's leaning forward. The rendering on his body is really nice, and you really get a sense of sort of the top and front and side of his forehead, of his skull, of the dome of his head, with those highlights. Mark, are there any retailer incentive covers for this issue?
There are. The first one up is Eastside Comics, Michelle Diaz Virgin variant, and let's see what character is being spotlighted here. Oh dear.
Why are there so many covers of Baroness?
The Baroness here is waist up. There's no logo, so the sort of top half of her head and the sort of top third of her gun take up the portion of the cover where there might be a logo. Her complexion is Caucasian, and there's a bit of blue in her eyes and red on her lips and red on the Cobra elements of her costume. But the rest of the cover is just rendered as black and white and grays. And I don't know if this is analog or digital, but to me, it looks like compressed charcoal, which I had to work with when I started art school. There's an unclear sense of the background. It feels a little bit like she's in an alley because of sort of a dark shape on the left and then a sort of a lighter shape on the right. Like there may be some buildings in the distance. This does feel urban. Does not feel jungle. It doesn't feel sort of, underground headquarters. The drawing here is pretty good. It feels a little what's the word, Mark? I think there's so much care in the rendering that the sort of figure in ground and the anatomy have a little less attention paid to them. So it feels this cover to me feels a little bit like the trees and not the forest. But if you like the Baroness, it's a cool cover, and she's got big compelling eyes and big attractive lips.
Okay, very good. Next up is 616 Comics, Chris NG. So this is available in 2 flavors, as a foil cover and as what they're calling a virgin variant. So one of them has got a bit more of an explosive background, and the other is a flat orange. I don't have a Scarlet jingle, so you're not going to hear one now. But I mean, it's. I don't know what to say about this one. It's okay. You're mute, Tim.
What's the word for the? It starts with a
Bushido.
B. Yeah, there have been a couple statues of Scarlet and Lady J and Baroness.
Dawn.
And Dawn Marino. There have been some G.I. Joe statues, and it's this Japanese style where it is an adult woman, but she's her pose and sort of her likeness is meant to be cute and sort of disarming. What's the word again?
I think they call them the Bushido statues. That particular line. Yeah.
This feels a little bit like that with the pose and sort of the weight on her her right hips thrusting out. Chris Ng,
and that sort of slightly anime manga kind of inspired design. Yeah.
Yes. Is this costume, Mark, is this picking up cues from a classified toy, or is this just sort of a very modern take with a lot of sort of activity on the costume, like straps?
Yeah,
and
I think
seams.
the latter. Yeah.
Okay. I believe if this is the same Chris Ng, that last name is spelled NG. This artist drew some Transformers Armada 20 years ago for Dreamwave, but has not drawn G.I. Joe since. But Mark, wasn't there a Dreamwave artist who helped out on one of the Devil Stew G.I. Joe Transformers crossovers? Anyway, we should probably start talking about the comic. Start talking about the insides.
I was going to quickly share up on screen while I'm at it. Just the Scarlet Bushido statue to give a sort of sense of the kind of aesthetic that we're talking about. So yeah, as Tim says, I think there were about 4 or 5 of these. And this is the Scarlet one, so it's definitely not a swipe of that statue or that pose, but yeah, there seems to be a lot of overlap in the Venn diagram of the general feel, and I guess the curve of the spine and the weight of the legs and stuff. There's a little bit of overlap there too. So there we go. That was the Bushido Scarlet. I think we are and there we go. Let's before I step on, I'll just shout out Infinite Entertainment in the chat. I can't catch this live. I know this is an ARAH stream, but I wanted to draw attention to Hasbro Pulse, where you can currently buy the SDCC Void Rivals set if you haven't. Yeah, so that is now live. You can get the 2 little 3 3/4 figures with that Jetfire over on Pulse at the moment. I think it's about $125-ish, thereabouts. And yeah, I'm tempted, but at that price point, I'm gonna hold off for now. But sort of some of that discussion from SDC coming out, there is a long pipeline of time before, planning these things through to release. So while it feels maybe quick, I think that it sort of talks to the fact that they've been planning some of these synergies and these things for some time, because we're not even up to, I think, issue 25 of Void Rivals yet. So a little over 2 years in, and there's an almost 2-year sort of production timeline. So they kind of got on it to start thinking about making the toys relatively quick. So I wonder what else is in that pipeline. But back to today and 319. Let's talk about what happens in this particular issue with a plot breakdown.
Plot breakdown.
In the drain system beneath Springfield, Storm Shadow and Dawn are spotted by Techno-Vipers, there to mop up straggler enhanced mutants. Above ground in Springfield, at the home of the Crimson Guard defectors, the Cobra youth Monty has rumbled Jinx. She's not his neighbour Nina, but with an Arashikage nerve touch, Sean knocks him out. However, he escapes and alerts Cobra, who surrounds the house. They're rescued by Storm Shadow and Dawn, who have borrowed a Cobra Jeep, and they all get out of Springfield. At Cobra Island, Wetsuit and Muskrat are spotted by a drone, and they are chased by a squad of Cobras in a Scorpion Jeep, but they make use of their high-tech ghillie suits to take the Cobras out. Meanwhile, inside the casino, a disguised Helix and Multo are snooping about and stumble into Mindbender's lab, and they get into a fight with Mindbender. Wetsuit and Muskrat save the day in a borrowed Cobra Jeep, and they all get out of Dodge. Dr. Mindbender's lab. Elsewhere, in Scotland, Cobra Commander is making his escape from Castle Destro and is chased by police, but rescued by a Crimson Guardsman who has a Hurricane VTOL ready to take him away. Tim.
I just have to jump in because Larry Hama does something really fun this issue in his formal presentation of this issue. Every single page jumps location from the previous page.
Oh.
And so what Hama is doing here is increasing the increments of story in each location by one page, right? And the first 6 call out the locations on the top panel, but then he doesn't need to anymore, right? So top of page 1, Springfield. Top of page 2, in the drain system under Springfield. Top of page 3, Cobra Island. Top of page 4, in the casino. Top of page 5, in the pit. Top of page 6, in Scotland. And for the rest of the issue, every page bounces back and forth between these locations. Now, some of these locations are quite close to each other, right? So Springfield and the sewers under Springfield are both in Springfield, but they involve different sets of characters, right? The characters who are right outside the house or the characters who are in the sewer. Similarly, on Cobra Island, there's in the jungle at the tree line by the beach. There's just in front of the casino outside. There's inside the casino. There's inside Mindbender's lab. But I don't think Hama has ever written an issue like this. Frank Colosimo says, Mark, so glad that recap didn't cut frenetically from scene to scene as the issue did. My whiplash is just healing after the read. My alternate take is that I loved these one-page increments because it quickened the pace of this issue, and it felt like a contrast from remember, Mark, we read a couple issues in the 290s, like 294, 295, 296, where we felt like an issue would start at the Cobra Casino in Mindbender's lab and would sort of repeat a beat from the previous issue, where it seemed like, half
it's almost like in a holding pattern of story, that it wasn't necessarily progressing particularly quickly.
And on top of that, this issue has fighting in almost all of these locations. And so Hama establishes these 6 locations, and what is specifically happening, there's something else happening on top of these 21-page scenes, which is on page 1, the Joes in location 1 are discovered. On page 2, the Joes in location 2 are discovered. On page 3, the Joes in location 3 are discovered. On page 4, the Joes in location 4 are discovered. On page 5, across 4 panels, Duke and other Joes back at headquarters get the news that location 1 discovered, location 2 compromised, location 3 compromised, location 4 compromised. And so just the first 5 pages, create this really building intensity. And I feel like these 4 Joes, Duke, Black Hat, Mainframe, and Stalker, have sort of even more to do in this issue, even though they don't. They're doing sort of what they've done in the last 30 issues. They're like taking phone calls back at headquarters and relaying information. So I really liked this formal approach, and it reminds me of the occasional experiments that Larry Hama has done with G.I. Joe, like issue 85, SFX, like, was it issue 230? I forget, the issue with no men.
And there was another issue with the sort of the Cobra and Joe's battling with the blue ninjas, where they had a splash page on every other page as well. So there's been a good few sort of experimental issues, and I didn't pick up this change of I picked up that there was a number of sceneries and there was a frenetic pace, but I didn't pick up the actual fact that every single page was a different scene until you actually pointed it out, Tim. So it's great. And sometimes these things, on first read, they just go past you. You don't quite realize the kind of the experiment that's going on in the storytelling.
what I also like about this is that this is not Larry Hama showing off. He's not trying to, break a record. Like the issue with the most panels or the cover with the most characters, those could be fun, and those have been fun, records to break. Hama's not doing this to be splashy. He's not doing this so some website will like write a think piece about it. He's doing it because he's interested in how comics work. And sometimes he just needs a lot of things to happen. And so what is a limitation he can create for himself? Okay, I need to forward the story because I've got all these different groups of characters. So I'm going to give them each one page. So a bunch of stuff has to happen on a page, right? So what does not happen in this issue, there aren't 3 panels in a row where a bunch of Joes describe to each other and us, the reader, what their gear is for this mission, right? And that's not a criticism because, Mark, you and I liked that 1 or 2 issues ago when the Joes did that. It's just a contrast, and maybe you can only have this kind of issue after you've had the other kind of issue where there sort of is no question, oh, well, Muskrat and Wetsuit are in these particular costumes, so they're going to be able to fight off the Blue Ninjas better. Okay, well, there's no time to explain that. Well, it was already explained last issue. And there's go for it.
I was going to say, you never know what you're going to get from a Hama story and what's going to happen. But it feels like we've had a number of issues in a row which are kind of slightly more gradual setup of getting the Joes into position. And this issue, it's much more frenetic. They're in position, but everything is going wrong. And that's very much a Hama thing that it doesn't, generally doesn't go smooth for the Joes. But here it's going wrong simultaneously 4 places at once to each of the Joes. And there's that kind of, synchronicity or sort of parallel running of what's going on where their mission is getting blown. But sort of speaking to my plot breakdown, some of it is even more a mirror image than others. The fact that 2 of the teams are getting rescued by the other half of the team almost simultaneously in a very similar way, in terms of one half of the team is stealing a Cobra vehicle, smashing through and rescuing the other half of the team in that Cobra vehicle.
Not only do things go wrong on the first 4 pages in the first 4 locations, something goes wrong in the 6th location on page 6 because Cobra Commander, who has kidnapped this motorist, this farmer, right? They're about to get into some kind of trouble, and then a few pages later, they're gonna hit some animals on the road unless they swerve. There's another interesting contrast here. In our last episode of this show, listeners, viewers, Mark and I talked about G.I. Joe Origins issue 19 because it introduces a character that's going to show up in 2 months in A Real American Hero 321, a pair of characters. And Mark and I made the comment, even though this issue was published by IDW and is sort of in a different continuity, but maybe not anymore, we made the comment that when the protagonist hero goes to this villain location, there's sort of 3 spots. There's like upstairs where the computer is, 4 spots. There's like the catwalk, there's like the main hangar bay, and then there's sort of a tunnel with a device. And we found some of the visual storytelling could have been a little more clear about sort of where these characters were moving from one space to another. And one of our comments was maybe if the colors had differentiated those locations a little bit more, it'd be easier to tell if we're sort of upstairs or downstairs or in the tunnel or out of the tunnel. And look what is happening, right? And this happens in every issue of A Real American Hero. So it's not new or particularly innovative for 319, but Francesco Segala has all these different locations. So Springfield is tan and orange, if you look at page 1. The sewers under Springfield are sort of green with blue. The jungle is green with yellow. The Cobra Casino is purple. I don't mean the physical building. I mean the sort of tones, right? If you look at Mindbender's complexion and sort of the metal on him, the interior of the Cobra Casino is orange. Mindbender's lab is blue with yellow, and then the pit where the monitors are, where Duke is, are sort of an electric blue. And so Segala is very clearly, not just this issue, but every issue, very clearly changing the palette for every location. And that is just a tool in any color artist's toolkit that they can use in comic books, and I generally want them to. If you read about animation or a lot of visual effects movies, you might know the term color script, where visual development artists will come up with sort of the color story, like what colors at the beginning of the movie, in the middle, and at the end, and it's like scene by scene or location by location. And so for all of the to use that term, whiplash, jumping from scene to scene in this issue, right? Just everyone imagine maybe how much harder it would be to tell where we are from page to page if this whole issue were colored like a 1988 issue of G.I. Joe, where like whatever the forest is, inside, outside, on the moon, at night, well, maybe not at night, it's sort of that same green, because there were only a limited number of colors, and the color artists tended to be coloring more realistically.
There was one moment in this issue where I was a little bit confused. I mean, it didn't throw me too much, but a little bit confused just about the storytelling, which was this sequence where Multo and Helix in their disguises are sort of sneaking about in the Cobra Casino, trying to find this office where they can sort of download some information. So their mission is to try and get some information about what's happening with these tourists as they're returning back to the mainland. And there's this sequence where they're sort of going from like the foyer through a door. And it looks like it's two panels, sort of broken potentially by a black border, or it could be a shade on a column, and it's Multo saying, "Okay, but this will arouse suspicion right quick." And then the panel to the right, or the door to the right, has got Helix going through a door, saying, "What choice do we have?" And then the next panel has them simultaneously entering the room with an "oops" as they sort of stumble onto into Mindbender's lab and are spotted. It's not the end of the world, but it was a little bit confusing. Are these two separate doors? Is it one door? What's going on?
Mark, you're saying that the left half of the panel where Multo in disguise goes into a doorway, you thought that maybe the right half of the panel is that same location a moment later after Multo goes in the doorway.
Yep.
And then Helix goes into that same doorway. Whereas if it is one long horizontal panel and it has a like marble column, not a panel border gutter between it, they're each going into different doorways that are next to each other.
Yep.
Yeah. You know what? I think it. Well, okay,
the door looks very the door looks very similar, right? And
yeah, but
on the next panel, they're in the same space together. Yeah. Which suggests it must be the same door. But if Multo went through first, why would he close the door behind him before?
Here's why I think it's not the same door. I think they went into two sets of doors next to each other. Underneath, behind the word balloon, what choice do we have? Helix's dialogue, there's a framed something on the wall, which would be to the left of the double doors. And there isn't one of those over on the far left side of the panel. So I think what's happening here is they're both going into two doorways that are next to each other at the same time. And then the amount of time that elapses between this panel and the next one, when we're in Mindbender's lab and Multo says, "Oops," rather than the next moment, it's like 30 seconds later, one of them came out of one doorway, followed the other. They sort of joined up with each other at the end of two parallel hallways, something. I see what you mean. This page, I think, Greg Augustine says, I read that as Helix was just looking, not entering.
So maybe she's looking into another door, seeing something, and then follows behind Multo. That works.
I do think that this page, out of all 20 pages in the issue, is the most complex and possibly confusing because it has two locations in it, even though I've been describing sort of this scene, right, following Multo and Helix as one location. They're in the casino interior, but what happens is they go from the interior casino to Mindbender's lab. So they move from one location to another, which isn't really happening in these other pages, right? As a comparison, if you just go to the next page of this comic book, right? We're in the pit. There are 4 panels. Paul Peleteier does a really nice job of keeping the visual of one person standing and 2 people sitting. 3 people sitting at computers, right? This is not, if you're a comic book artist, you don't want to draw this, right? You want to draw this if your writer just made you draw like a double page splash in Times Square, right? Like just give me 4 people sitting in a computer room, right?
And there's at least one of these every single issue.
Right.
This was the page from the last one.
Right. But what Paul Peleteier has done nicely is he's moved the, quote, camera around. He's changed everyone's poses. Duke is standing. Duke is leaning. Duke is really leaning. Duke's not in the final one. In the final one, Stalker's looking over his shoulder. And so there's all this visual interest for characters just sitting around talking and like looking at screens. Even though there isn't a lot. So here's a page where there isn't a lot going on, and it is all in just this one very small space, right? Whereas the page before that we were just talking about with Multo and Helix and going from the sort of foyer main lobby of the casino into Mindbender's lab goes from one location, one color to another, and it's much more crowded. And this is one of those cases where, you know what, I'll say it. If only this was 15 years ago and comic books had 22 pages and not 21 pages, this scene could have been broken up over 2 pages, and we could have one whole page in the casino lobby and one whole page in the lab. And also we could get Mindbender. I'm going to write into a bit of dialogue in this slightly expanded, more breathing room version of the scene where Mindbender says to his blue ninjas something like, with my fire up the so-and-so as I get ready to reactivate this dormant Serpentor clone. Serpentor will live again. Something like that.
I was going to say, Tim, the amount of times that you talk about 20 pages versus 22 pages, I should make a jingle of it. And then I realized that I actually have made a jingle of that.
I got 20 pages or so. I got 20 pages or so. If you like comic books, come on, let me know. When we're reading G.I. Joe, you've lost 2 pages, yo, Joe. You've lost 2 pages, oh no. If you like comic books, come on, let me know. When we're reading G.I. Joe, you lost 2 pages, yo, Joe. You lost 2 pages, oh no. So if you like Joe, come on, let me know. We've got 20 pages before I go.
21 pages, 21 pages, There we go.
Wow. Okay, other fun. All right, so we've talked a lot about the pacing of the issue and this formal structure of one page scene, one page scene, one page scene. Mark, what do you think about Dr. Mindbender and his new costume and his new cybernetic enhanced abilities?
Oh, yeah, because, you know, he's getting into like a full-on kind of ruck here, isn't he? That they take out.
Sorry, I'm American. I don't know what a ruck is. Is that's a backpack?
Take a guess. He's getting into a full-on physical fight as a scientist, a dentist, as a sort of generally for the most of G.I. Joe history up to date. He's kind of considered to be basically a non-physical threat. So he's someone in behind, in the background, planning, scheming, ordering, etc. Whereas now the Multo and Helix very easily take out these badass blue, enhanced blue ninja cyborg guys who have previously been established as being, very powerful. those are the ones that get taken out very, very easily, whereas it's Mindbender who is the physical threat here in this sequence. As you know, they get taken out. He pulls out, all of these tick, 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 kind of mask style weaponry from his wrist gauntlets, and then sort of levels those at the Joes, and there's a much more sort of like physical confrontation between Mindbender and the two Joes, and it they basically are saying that he's getting they're really badass fighters, aren't they, Multo and Helix, and he's basically getting the best of them over his physical prowess and superiority, and it's only the intervention of the other two Joes in vehicle, wetsuit and Muskrat, who come and rescue him and sort of run away, essentially, that gets them out of this situation. So it's a very different dynamic. I'm not sure quite how I feel about it, because if everyone is like, super badass, best of the best, muscly, powerful, great at fighting, it's a bit of a different playing field versus having Mindbender as somewhat of a weakling, although going by his original toy design, he is body confident enough to go around topless in suspenders. He is someone that works out, clearly, but he's never been established as being a fighter, so it is a very different take on Mindbender. I'm not sure quite what I think, but go along with it. I'm happy for things to change and not to be like set in amber and never allowed to be different. Tim, what do you think about this change of tack to Mindbender?
Well, this page you have on screen right now, Mindbender's word balloon at the top, sums it all up. It would pay not to underestimate my new abilities. And he says this as he's lifting up this giant metal technical, computer console coffin storage thing. It's like the size of 3 coffins, right? It's bigger than a bread box. And then he gets hit head on by
he does
4-wheel drive vehicle, like a Jeep, and we'll be specific about that in a moment. I agree with you. This is not my first idea for Mindbender, but Larry Hama has demonstrated over and over in the last 10 years that he either really likes Dr. Mindbender or is really not interested in using a lot of other one-of-a-kind Cobra characters like Tomax or Zaymot or Major Blood. I do think once you have incorporated Blue Ninjas and Alpha 001, all bets are off, that you can sort of have cyborgs. And, the brainwave scanner, which traces all the way back to the first year or two of G.I. Joe, was at the time quite fantastical and science fiction. And I feel like there's a little bit of a sort of collective acceptance of it, because when we read that, we were younger and just seemed like, okay. And now Hama's doing something similar with Alpha 001 and Blue Ninjas and Dr. Mindbender's refit here. What seemed fanciful in 1982, 1983, we're close to being able to do now with the brainwave scanner. So maybe sort of proportionately, Mindbender as a cyborg isn't so far away. I do want to see other characters like Major Blood and Gristle or Cesspool, because that's what makes Cobra so flavorful. And that said, one of the things that I sometimes get tired of is Cobra Commander failing or being ineffective. And in the last issue, he snuck out of prison. And in this issue, he is making an escape that is both sort of desperate and exciting. And he's being mean about it. He's got an innocent bystander who he's kidnapped and he's got at gunpoint. He wants to run over. Is it sheep?
Yeah,
sheep, right? Because the guy's brakes don't work, so we can't stop. Keep driving, and this Crimson Guardsman who shows up in a bit of a funny disguise is sort of another hint that Cobra Commander has reach everywhere. That even in Scotland there may be people on his side helping him get out of there. I got myself off on a tangent. Let's go back to this Desert Scorpion, folks.
Wait, before we do that, let's
okay.
That final panel of Dr. Mindbender, they'll get theirs after I resurrect Serpentor. So he's very much still thinking about Serpentor. Who has been? This isn't coming out of nowhere. It has been a plot point very much in the background over the course of the last 10 issues or so. The Joe Recon team had spotted this Serpentor body in a fridge. They sort of stole it away with them, used it as a boat to get them to shore. Mindbender has stolen it back, taken it to Alpha 001 and to this new Cobra Island, back to the Cobra Island location. And so, very much playing on his mind that he does want to resurrect Serpentor. And let's not forget this. We had the original Serpentor. We had a sort of a resurrected Serpentor in the early 200s, sort of leading up to the death of Snake Eyes. We then had Serpentor Khan in the back end of the IDW era, sort of, 295 through to 300, and then in the early issues of this particular run, as Serpentor Khan, the sort of zombie mutant leader, who was ultimately defeated by Destro, and now we're back to Serpentor again. Is it going back to the well too much, Tim?
Yes. If Hama has Mindbender bring Serpentor back, there will be as many Serpentors as clay faces
or snake eyes.
More. Oh, actually, no. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Snake Eyes 1, Sean,
Dawn, Snake Eyes 2.
Snake Eyes 2.
Yeah. Okay. I hope, in the 290s when Serpentor was on his way to coming back, and I said, no, he's not going to do it. And Hama did, but he added this twist. It's not actually Serpentor, it's Serpentor Khan, it's Genghis Khan, it's this whole other character. I hope that if this comes to pass, something about it will be very different. I also, I like Serpentor. I had the toy as a kid, and he was a favorite character on the cartoon. I want Mindbender to want to do something different, or I think I need a speech from Mindbender where he reminds me, the reader, why Serpentor is so great, or why creating Serpentor in the first place and needing to bring back a Serpentor is the epitome of science, of mad science, of Mindbender's great aspirations. Because maybe without that bit of motivation, it just seems like a thing that he wants that I remain to be convinced of. It certainly makes for a dramatic cover on this issue. Can we talk about the Desert Scorpion?
Yeah, we sure can. So
okay.
I was just getting the close up of the panel at hand where it is introduced.
So, folks, I don't have the final 5 or 10 Marvel issues right next to me. They're in another room, and I didn't pull them out to check. I don't remember if the Desert Scorpion appeared in the final year of the Marvel comic. I do know that the final issue of the Marvel comic does not have any new characters or vehicles, and 3 issues of G.I. Joe in its final year are flashbacks or issues that had been completed long before 1994. The Desert Scorpion is this 4-wheel drive. The Scorpion. I'm sorry. Desert Scorpion is a Cobra guy. I'm sorry. Right. The Scorpion is this beige, Jeep thing And this was in this late period where some of the G.I. Joe vehicles reused parts from other ones to keep costs down. So if you squint, and the Scorpion to you looks a lot like the Joe, what's the teal Joe Jeep from a year before? Anyway, they all share the same wheels, right? And they all kind of look like the same scale. Like they look like the All Striker, but much less fun. And they've got like lots of guns and missiles on them and like battering rams. Anyway, I don't know if this has shown up in the comic ever before. But...
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say no.
Okay. So not only does it show up here, there's more than one. It shows up across many pages. It is a key part of the story because two of them play chicken, with some Joes driving in one towards some Cobras driving in another. Some Joes slam into Dr. Mindbender after crashing through a wall, which is really funny and pretty convenient that they knew exactly where Mindbender would be standing. I'll objection, Your Honor, sustained. I'll allow it. And I sort of wonder if Larry Hama sort of glanced at his wall and looked at the like old Carson Metaxas 3D Joe's poster. Oh wait, no, Carson did that of all the figures, but he didn't do it of the vehicles. Anyway, I wonder if Larry Hama sort of looked somewhere on his shelf in a book or a magazine or on a website and thought, what's a vehicle I could put here? Or if he included something or it had a blank mark and sort of left it to creative consultant Diana Davis to make a suggestion. Like, you know what, Larry, you know what would go with this? You know what would go good here? The Desert Scorpion. Excuse me, I keep saying it wrong. The Scorpion, right? Because you could drive it on the beach and you could drive it through some light jungle brush. And
Tim, I think you keep on getting the name wrong because you've not seen the advert recently enough.
Can you handle the Battle Corps Mayhem machine? The Joes raft the rapids in the motorized Manta Ray. Sleek, stealthy, and armed to the gills. But Cobra bites back with the sinister Scorpion and its super stinging missile launcher. Yeah! Zipcord Razorblade races to the rescue. Attack Chopper, Cobra Stopper, Battle Corps, land, sea, air. More machines, more mayhem, more action than you can handle.
I'm going for it!
G.I. Joe Razorblade, Manta Ray, and Cobra Scorpion each hold separately. Go for that, Joe!
Thank you.
Seeing the images of the plastic toy itself, I thought, yeah, that looks a little bit crappy, to be honest. I don't know that I necessarily need one of those in my collection, but watching the advert, oh my word, how cool does that look?
I'm just excited that something from late in the line, which either didn't get an appearance or got an abbreviated appearance, gets an appearance, because it is this unspoken desire that every Joe character and vehicle shows up, because from 82 to 93, they all were. I mean, not the fridge, not literally every toy, but just about every toy. And even the ones that sort of didn't feel like they fit, even the ones that felt like a wrong turn, I was kind of bummed when the Eco Warriors showed up in the comic. At the same time, I was curious how the comic was going to handle it. And the Scorpion doesn't have any baggage like the Eco Warriors. It's not like covered in slime because it's actually a Mega Marines vehicle. It's just a Battle Corps vehicle. Although maybe this is where someone tells me that it was meant to be a Mega Marines vehicle and then they changed it a year later. But I also appreciate that artist Paul Peleteier, when he was on the show, said to us he's more comfortable drawing characters and clothing, soft things, and finds it a challenge to draw these very strange, particular G.I. Joe vehicles. And I assume by extension, if he was drawing regular cars like Ferraris and Lamborghinis, those are hard too. The Scorpion it's because it's boxy, maybe it's a little easier to draw. Like the Stinger has a couple angles on it, and something like the Razorback, which I don't think Paul Pelletier has drawn, but that's just very complicated, right? And anyway, I like seeing, because we always see his tanks and we always see Stingers, and similarly, I was excited when the Crimson Guardsman, who is there to help rescue Cobra Commander, he says, hop in. There's a VTOL Hurricane waiting at the local airstrip. And I made a little noise of delight. Not because I like that vehicle. I don't love that vehicle, right? That vehicle just makes me think of Deke episodes, right? It's cool that after the Rattler and then the Night Raven, Cobra gets another VTOL jet. That's cool. But it's got yellow missiles and it's a little bit more toyetic, right? Whereas the Rattler and the Night Raven look realistic, both in their proportions and in their shapes, right? But the Hurricane, it's a real G.I. Joe vehicle, right? It's not like fan-made. It's not a mistake. It's canon. And even if it feels sort of out of left field because it's from later, it's no one's favorites. I love that Hama and or Diana Davis are checking off some lesser seen boxes. And then Mark is zooming in on the final panel of this whole issue where we see Vapor.
Yeah, only
right?
a Vapor. Yeah.
As Pilot. So the action figure that came with that toy. And again, I'm sure we've seen a Vapor like once for 3 panels in...
It was in Murder by Assassination.
Okay, very good.
Al Cobra took I think he was piloting like a Fang or something like that, and Al Cobra shot him and sort of threw him to one side and said it's only a Vapor or something like that, if I recall correctly.
So this Vapor doesn't say anything, and we don't see him full body, but every G.I. Joe figure was a special creation that added to this line. And I had favorites, and I had sort of middle rung ones that I kind of liked, and I had ones that I thought were underpainted or not good G.I. Joe designs, but they're still a part of it. And I want them all to make appearances, particularly when... Okay, so here's a counter. Here's a contrast, right? 2 panels earlier, Duke says that we need to get some extractions and air support over there. Prep the Stealth Fighter and the Sky Striker for takeoff. Right. And I thought, simultaneously, cool. The Stealth and the Sky Striker are awesome. They're favorites. People are going to be excited. And there have been good stories with both. At the same time, we see them all the time. And I don't really want Larry Hama to, what's the G.I. Joe, what's the F-16 jet from 1993, the one with the little flashlight thing?
I'm not very good at remembering the names of the jets. Yeah.
So, hey everyone, remember that G.I. Joe jet that's sort of like an F-16, but it's like too short and it's very toyetic because it's got a pistol grip so you can hold it. I don't really want that to be in the comic, but I do think that should be in the comic once. And maybe
with a giant hand, just sort of slightly off panel.
Maybe Diana Davis can get a cameo, and it can just be her hand in the world of G.I. Joe. Anyway, so I'm very excited talking for 10 minutes about the Scorpion and obscure vehicles and characters. And for that matter, I have this continuing desire, and it's because I like all these costume changes, even when later versions of characters were not as cool, right? Like you can't beat version 1 Dusty, right? I'm not talking about Tiger Force. I'm talking about version 3 when he comes with Sandstorm. That's a cool costume. It's not nearly as cool. And I don't really want Dusty in the comics to take off his version 1 costume and put on his version 3 costume. But Stalker's version 1 costume is a little plain. And remember issues 95 and 96 when he's wearing his version 2 costume, his Tundra with the white jacket, right? Doesn't make sense. Wouldn't be wearing a white jacket, a Tundra jacket in New York City, but it's just a cool visual. So I always hope that Joe's for no reason will just change costume for half an issue and wear a later version, even though no one at Hasbro is making Skybound the way that they were at Marvel. One last request. Here's one more hope, Mark, for next issue. So Duke says, prep the Stealth Fighter and the Sky Striker armed for ground support. I want to see some cool characters as a part of this mission, right? Because it's the Stealth, I'm guessing it'll be Ghost Rider. And because it's the Sky Striker, I don't know. Who do you want to see where if he said the Tomahawk, then we would know it's Lift Ticket and Wild Bill. But this is a chance, every issue when there's a couple of Joes, Hama can mix in another Joe we haven't seen in a while.
Yeah, stick in an esoteric Joe for one of the pilots. Greg Augustin in with the assist on the plane that we were struggling to remember. Thanks to 3D Joes for this and other images included. There it is in its glory, the Ghost Striker X16. There we go.
So stubby.
Never had this one.
It doesn't look like a G.I. Joe vehicle because it's so short, separate from the pistol grip. It's just,
foldable pistol grip that comes up and down with a trigger on it.
You compare the proportions of the Sky Striker to it. Anyway, you know who I really want to be in that Sky Striker in the next issue? I want Duke to be in the Sky Striker. No joke, because we haven't seen him in a Sky Striker since Cobra World Order, right? The issue between 318 and 319. I think. But also Duke's a cool character, and I feel like for the last 20 issues, he's just been at the pit taking phone calls. Yeah. And he's the field commander, right? He's not the brigadier general commander. So it's time for, Hawk to take some phone calls and Duke to grab a gun.
Someone that we have not seen for a very, very long time. We've not seen, apart from, I think, the recap page of 301. I don't know that we've seen Hawk since then. And yeah, I mean, what we've seen of G.I. Joe in this Skybound era so far has been very much G.I. Joe in the background, with most of the plot being pushed forward by Cobra and other enemy factions, let's call them. And G.I. Joe does have a history of when it's getting involved, it doesn't necessarily go particularly brilliantly for the team. That they don't have that many wins that they can strike up on their chalkboard. And here we have 4 simultaneous losses essentially, or mini losses in terms of getting into scrapes and running away. So yeah, we've not seen too much of G.I. Joe as the primary protagonist drivers of the story, but also not too many recent instances of G.I. Joe, chalking up wins.
That's a good point. Cobra has very much been the driver of things in the Skybound run. I find it really fun and funny and a little sad for the heroes that these very, very capable ninjas get to Springfield, and both halves of them, both halves of this team, their cover is blown. And then similarly, these 4 Joes who just left Cobra Island and got away from the casino and then had to go back, their mission, I think they're going to get away, but they're in some trouble, and sort of feels like this, the heroes can't catch a break. And I think Larry Hama has alluded to that as a theme of his G.I. Joe stories in interviews over the years. Considering how packed this issue is with characters and locations, Mark, remind us, where are Baroness, Destro, and Zartan, because there wasn't room for them.
Yeah, so last we saw of Baroness and Destro, they were in Scotland, in Destro's castle, with a captive Cobra commander who has we see the aftermath of, or his actual escape, this issue. So presumably that's where Destro and Baroness still are. Zartan, I think we last saw at the sort of the back end of the Cobra Civil War invasion sequence in Springfield, and I don't think we've necessarily seen since. So I don't know that we know where he is geographically now. Presumably he's gone off somewhere with the Dreadnoks following that I guess the conclusion of that particular story.
And when we last saw Destro and the Baroness, Destro was okay with Cobra Commander escaping from Destro's home because Destro, had planted something, a chip or something in Cobra Commander that he could both make him feel pain and also, I guess, track him. And so we may not see Destro and the Baroness for a while, because he may just let Cobra Commander go all the way to some location, Springfield or Broca Beach or some new headquarters, so that Destro can sort of make an even bigger surprise later on. If the point was it was okay to let him go, he's not going to spend the next issue chasing him, unless that's part of the ploy to make Cobra Commander feel like he's actually getting away. But Destro's not needed for that point. And
here's a thing about Cobra Commander in his disguise as we see him this issue. So he's getting away and making his escape, but as we saw him as at the end of last issue, he isn't wearing his glasses. So he is just a guy with a beret, a ponytail, and a mustache. With a less significant disguise, because as we know from Superman, it is glasses that make the difference as to whether you're recognized or not. Who is this co-host that's just joined the stream as Mark takes off his glasses? So yeah, we and it's a bit nice continuity that he's not wearing his glasses in this particular issue, because we did see him in the last issue. Taking off his glasses, breaking the what do you call them? The legs of the glasses, the bits that hook over your ears.
The earpieces.
I feel like there's a better name for them, but
the stems, the sticks.
Yeah, maybe
the sticks.
The old glasses sticks. Yeah, and so he broke those off because they contained sort of explosive components, so that he could make his escape and blow the lock. So he doesn't have his glasses as a result of that. And I guess the glasses, maybe they must be purely cosmetic, because when he's in his battle helmet or his hood, he's not wearing he's not wearing any glasses as part of that outlook, and surely he doesn't have enough time to bother with contact lenses, so possibly it is just a cosmetic part of his disguise, and he doesn't really need glasses.
I'm going to assume Dr. Mindbender has performed LASIK or a Meta Viper who's scalpel. Can you go back a page or two in this original pencil artwork of Paul Peleteier to Cobra Commander in the truck with the Scottish motorist?
Oh yeah.
Those are some good looking sheep. No, I'm serious.
You sound like a Welshman here.
Paul Peleteier draws good sheep, and there are comic book artists who don't want to draw animals because they are not going to do a good job. And Paul Peleteier does a good job here.
And he draws more sheep in this issue as well, doesn't he? He draws them. Where are we? He draws them as Cobra Commander is trying to make his getaway, and the road is blocked by some sheep, and old Bob McLeod here is putting on the Bobby McLeod is putting on his brakes to his emergency brakes, saving them for best, to make a stop before realizing that the police that was chasing Cobra Commander is actually a Crimson Guard. But to the efficacy of Cobra Commander's disguise, there is a line as they are looking at him making his getaway in the VTOL. They say, "Guess who's in the passenger seat?" Seeing Cobra Commander in his disguise. So I think Cobra Commander's disguise is basically just Cobra Commander at this point. Instantly recognizable.
I think the Joes have seen him in this disguise.
Yes.
So a random farmer motorist in Scotland would not know that this is a wanted international terrorist, and the Joes would. I just want to point out a little something actually on that previous page you had with the Crimson Guardsman in the police car. One fun thing there and one little question. This is page 15. Okay. In the first panel, I think Larry Hama is trying to... Greg Augustin says, those sheep aren't bad at all. But that joke sure is. Thanks, Greg. On the first panel of page 15, there's a sound effect over the police siren, and it's wah, 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 wah. And I have to imagine that Larry Hama, in his plot, is spelling out a specific onomatopoeia to differentiate this siren from an American siren or maybe other parts of Europe. Yeah, please.
I was going to say, I don't think it's like a Charlie Brown Peanuts style adults talking wah 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 wah. I think what we're hearing is wah 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 wah,
which is different from the American wee 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 or wee, which gets R's and E's and O's and maybe some W's. Comics are fun, folks, and sound effects are a tool in your toolkit. So that's the thing I like on this page. A thing that I'm not sure about, on the final two panels of this page, the Crimson Guardsman says, hold on there, hop in. There's a VTOL Hurricane waiting at the local airstrip. And I thought these 3-word balloons are missing a short word, sir. Isn't this Crimson Guardsman being overly familiar with Cobra Commander, his commander? Now, if he's sort of panicking, like, whoa, 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 don't point that pistol at me. I'm here to help you. That's one thing. But I feel like he would still get in I'm here to help you, sir. Just a small little thing. While we're rattling off fun things in the issue, there are Techno Vipers in the issue. There is a Cobra Stinger, although it's drawn really small or sort of behind other stuff twice. Storm Shadow and Dawn really kill the heck out of some Techno Vipers with their swords.
They do kill the heck out of them. And their guns. Later on.
Right. 1, 5, 6, 7. Page 7, that middle panel, Storm Shadow is slashing the throat of a Techno Viper with his sword. That's definitely blood. And this panel would not be drawn or colored this way if this was IDW. It would be black, or it would be like bright yellow, sort of like, like an effect, like when you punch someone, but not like an actual liquid spurt. So that's fun because these are deadly ninja.
And here's them shooting the heck out of some troopers, again with blood, which is colored red, and
exit wounds. Those bullets are going through that third Cobra soldier, and there's a big explosion coming out of his back of red guts, and it's small, and these are the bad guys. These are stormtroopers, folks, and in Star Wars, it's okay to blast the stormtroopers.
But not the big characters, not the named characters. Sort of let them live.
When I got to the bottom of this page and Storm Shadow and Dawn climb out of the manhole cover, and they see these three Vipers. Sorry,
person hole. It's a person hole cover. Being very gendered there, Tim.
2 Vipers and a Cobra soldier, and a Cobra Stinger, and I thought, oh, is it clear? Not quite. And I thought, oh no. Storm Shadow and Dawn have been captured because they're outnumbered. They're in a weak position because they're popping up out of a very small opening in the street, and they're looking at 3 people who are standing with machine guns and pistols. And I thought, oh no, Storm Shadow and Dawn are going to be captured when I come back to the scene in a couple of pages. But no.
It's one of those typical situations that, there's 3 of them and just 2 of us. Those aren't fair numbers for them.
Right. That is how it's presented. That's not quite how I read it. And when we cut back to them a few pages later, they have just already taken that his tank.
Yeah.
And excuse me, they've already just taken that stinger.
Yeah.
So this is again, I've said this many times before. You read a G.I. Joe comic book, particularly one written by Larry Hama, and it doesn't read like a lot of other comics. G.I. Joe, the toy line, had all these vehicles, and so Hama has to spend time on these vehicles, but he also wants to because he's interested in this stuff and it's fun. And he also likes cars, right? So, Clutch and Rock and Roll are driving a Mustang or a Camaro or something because those are fun cars, and Hama wants to give his artists something fun to draw. So, I don't know that there are any X-Men. There are a lot of X-Men comics. I don't know that there are any X-Men comics with a car chase scene, but there are lots of G.I. Joe comics with a car chase scene. Now, you might have to count it as a military Jeep, or like a Cobra Pogo and a military Jeep. But it's funny because as fantastic as this comic is with, Dr. Mindbender lifting this crazy thing over his head because he's now a cyborg, you also have sort of the sort of everyday grounded stuff of, we have to drive out of this city. The only way we can do it is with this stolen car and this other stolen car. As super as these ninja are, we have to do it fast, and we don't have an air extraction. It's not nighttime, so we can't just sneak out, and we can't use the sewer anymore. Like, well, let's steal this car. Let's also steal that car. And then, you have these fun things. There was we talked about that earlier page, which was maybe a little, yeah.
Can we talk just about this page for a second, which is they're driving away, leaving Springfield, as the sign says on the end of the page. And it does feel a little bit like that's becoming a G.I. Joe trope at the moment, that the Joes go in, there's a fight, it doesn't go very well for them. And then they are, out of Springfield, past the leaving Springfield sign. And that, I think this must be at least the fifth time that's happened in the modern era, where there has been like a Joe team going into Springfield, big fight, doesn't go very well, exfiltrate out of Springfield and leave the Cobras to it. It does feel like Springfield is very much a protected bubble. Cobra is not going to leave that Springfield line to go outside of Springfield into the rest of the states, and for whatever reason, the Joes and the wider police, military, whatever, are leaving them to live in their Springfield, terrorist state existence.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, in terms of the Joes going there many times, what are the differences between Larry Hama's G.I. Joe comic and, let's say, the Marvel Sunbow animated cartoon? Is that in the cartoon, I don't think Cobra ever used the same base twice. Even sort of Cobra Temple Alpha in the first miniseries and the second miniseries, I think, it's sort of a new one each time. And, all you need is a writer to type a sentence like Cobra Base, the Alps, Cobra Base, the jungle in Brazil, Cobra Base, Madagascar.
And previously, it's really been the case where the Cobra would have a location, a base, like the original Springfield. The Joes would find out about it. There might be a confrontation. The cover is blown, and they move on to the next location, Broker Beach. That gets blown. Move on to the next location. Arbco Acres or whatever it is. And it seems like in this modern era, Springfield has been this sort of permanent location that they've been attached to, despite it definitely not being a secret to the Joes as to where it is.
Yeah, it is feeling repetitive, and one or two lines of dialogue could sort of wave that away. If Cobra Commander or someone were to say, let's head to the other Springfield, there's so many, and suddenly, it's like Jeff Johns is writing Green Lantern, and it's not just the green part of the spectrum. And then, Sinestro has a yellow ring. Did you know there are also red and blue and purple and white rings? Like, it's suddenly like, this like franchising, this multiplication of, anyway. Yes, I would like Cobra to set up a new base. Not just because this one feels like it's been thoroughly explored, but also because it would be an opportunity
thoroughly destroyed as well.
Right. It would be an opportunity for Hama to, make a new comment about geography or home or security. Springfield had a certain feeling in those early issues of G.I. Joe. Broca Beach, when I came into reading G.I. Joe, Springfield was sort of old news, and Broca Beach was where it was at. And Broca Beach it's like Atlantic City, right? Or
was it like Coney Island or something like that? Or
I think it's more New Jersey, but
New Jersey.
Yes, I mean it has an amusement park, so maybe it's part. Actually, I thought of it that way. But what is the new version of this where Hama could have
like Jersey? Yeah, I think you're right. Like Jersey Shore.
Yeah, but Hama could have people who are brainwashed or who aren't, but are just true believers. What's the modern sort of punchline or joke? It's like, well, it's not a nice little town like ours. It's like, all the gentrified condos in Williamsburg, in Brooklyn, in New York. Like that's the new Cobraville or whatever it is. It could be, it could be a mountain in Oregon. It could be, beachfront property in Florida. I think I need Cobra to realistically admit that Springfield is compromised and much less useful now, or it could become something else. Like it's no longer a town with houses. Now it's like just a base, or it's got a big armored, like you put a giant terrordrome there, and it's like a different thing. I think I have run out of observations to make about the insides of the issue, the 20 pages of story and arts. Diana Davis says, I think to have the CG use Sir would have spoiled the reveal of the final panel. Note in the second to last, he was still silhouetted. Yeah, so there's a bit of a surprise from the third panel on this page where you don't know that Cobra Commander is being rescued. You think that it's this police officer, this Scottish police officer who really has stopped this runaway truck. And then the final panel, you see a CG in red and this sort of funny punchline where he's wearing the cop's hat, and next to him a cop is like tied up and taped up.
Okay, moving on. We do have a little regular segment that we do where we remark on the latest thing that Snake Eyes is saying in Snake Eyes Talking.
Snake Eyes talking, Snake Eyes talking about things he wants to say.
So, Snake Eyes Talking this month, he says, tell Duke we can't exfiltrate until Tommy and Dawn get back. That's the end of that segment.
Wait, doesn't he say one more thing? When they're... Yeah, a couple pages later.
Maybe. Okay.
He says, Sean, start the car in the garage. We're busting out of here. That's after this funny bit of...
Oh, he does, yeah.
This sort of funny bit of business where... Jinx has said, they got here fast. Good thing we changed back into our combat gear. And I smiled at that line because I don't know exactly what's happening, but Hama is like fixing a little time compression because they're in a rush, so maybe they would still be in their disguise civilian clothes, but it's no fun if they escape in their disguises. You want to see them in their cool uniforms, or I don't think Paul Peleteier accidentally jumped ahead and drew them in their actual costumes, and therefore Hama had to write a dialogue patch to account for it. But this feels like a little bit of sort of, the gears of a story turning in this bit of Jinx dialogue.
There's a good point here from 610 Yojo Daddy. How do trained ninjas not see a kid get out of a chair? It does feel like they definitely took their eye off the ball there. I mean, Sean had dealt with the situation so adeptly with his Vulcan nerve touch or whatever it was there, but then he just gets up and out and runs down the road and alerts everyone. Blown.
Well, we often remark that Cobras are very easily taken out by Joes.
Yes,
but
and they're slippery.
Cobras, are really well trained and should put up more of a fight. This kid, what's his name again?
Monty.
Monty. He's in the Cobra. Are you doing the doorbell from Tiny Toons? No, that's Money. Excuse me. He's part of the Cobra Youth Brigade. Maybe the first thing that they're trained is to sneak away fast. So I'm done talking about the issue. Man, so many scorpions. Mark, should we talk about that cool letter?
Yeah, let's talk about that cool letter in the back of the book from Patreon member Craig. I'm assuming it's our Patreon member, Craig. There can't be too many Craigs about in the Joe community, can there? So his letter reads, Alex, I have read nearly every G.I. Joe comic, including the entire Marvel and Skybound, and all but a handful of IDW comics, missed some of the crossovers with other properties and the part of the Aubrey Citizen run. Some might say you didn't miss too much there. Others would disagree, just for editorial bias there. Chris Mooneyham's art is simply the best of all the runs put together. It's both stylized and clear. Please keep them on the book in perpetuity. If Chris needs an occasional substitute, I would love to see Antonio Fuso revisit his work from the Cobra series. As for the ideas of future events, I suggest a series of Cobra silent missions. 1, Firefly. 2, Cropmaster. 3, a night creeper infiltrating a tech company. 4, a Crimson Guardsman gaining access to a government agency. And 5, a snow serpent running amok at Arctic research stations. That is Craig from NorCal. Are you able to read the reply, Tim?
Yo, Craig, a Cobra event. Interesting. Very interesting. And good suggestions. If we do something like this, and I do say if, it'll largely be a conversation between me and the creators. I want them to draw the characters that get them excited, because that's the secret to getting great work out of talented artists.
Indeed. So if you're a Patreon member, one of the many benefits that you get is that we'll try our best to feature your letter if it does get featured. Any other things in the letter page that caught your attention there?
Yes, I was happy to see another letter written by you, Mark, that was published in Postbox The Pit here in issue 319. You should probably read it because you do a better impression.
I do a better impression of me. Okay, here we go. Dear Alex and crew, what a month April was. 5 new silent missions. Issues bookended by 2 issues of regular ARAH, giving us 7 concurrent weeks of G.I. Joe. We've been kept busy at Talking Joe HQ, covering all of the extra content with Chris Mooneyham, Andrew Cronkey, Phil Hester, Danny, Diana Davis, as well as everyone's favourite editor, all stopping by to talk with us. Silent Missions gave us a real treat, I think. It did get me thinking about other artists who I'd love to see take on Joe. Possibly for Silent Missions version 2 or some other project. Kickley, Mac Ray, Michael Lark, Steve Epting, Steve Rude, Jock, Eric Canate, Chris Somney, Cliff Chang, Greg Smallwood, Joe Quinones, Victor Santos, and Adam Riches. I could go on. I also got to thinking about scenarios that might fit a silent mission. In space, underwater, with a character who has been deafened. Until next time, Yo Joe. Mark, Talking Joe said, and Talking Joe podcast. It's me.
Yo, Mark, thanks for doing my job for me. I'll just go ahead and call Steve rude right now. But seriously, thank you for your enthusiasm and support. I loved putting together the Silent Missions event. Will there be more? Good question. Only time will tell. Mark, just now, did you skip Did you skip a sentence in your letter, or did my
I think I probably did. I was reading a copy and paste in my wording, and I might have.
Silent Missions gave us a real murderous row of talent,
there we go.
bringing their unique voices and varied artistic styles to the world of G.I. Joe, and I would be happy to have any of them back. So it's good to know that if people have favorites and particular suggestions, that editor Alex Antone will print them. I feel like sometimes if someone has a crazy idea or even a good idea, they actually don't print them in letters pages, because then if something else happens, people are disappointed, or if they're trying to make that thing happen by coincidence, then the sort of surprise is blown. But, you know, folks, if you have ideas for stories, characters you want to see show up, obscure vehicle, I guess a 1994 vehicle isn't obscure, lesser seen vehicles from 1994 to finally show up in the comic, format suggestions. I'm really enjoying that 2 letter writers in this letters page have thoughts about more silent missions. So send those in, and even if they're not printed, the editor will see them. And I'm also excited that at the end of this letters page, there is a Larry Hama sketch for that Dr. Mindbender costume design, which we talked about. Was it last issue, or was it the issue before, right? Where he gets the cover and he debuts his new costume. And you found the image that Larry Hama had posted on Facebook. And here it is.
And I think you commented at the time, it sure would be great if they stuck that in the back of the letters page.
I'm sure I'm sure that was, okay. If there is a creative consultant who listens to this show and managed to suggest to an editor on the book that would be a fun thing, that's awesome. Great, thanks. I certainly don't think that a busy editor of this comic listens to this show and took that idea. I also don't think the timing of when we did that episode and when this would have been sent off to the printer would allow for that. But also, I was not coming up with anything brilliant because editor Alex Antone had already included a sketch or two by Larry Hama in previous letters pages. Like there was Hama's original idea for the cover to 301 before Andy Kubert drew it, and then I forget, someone else got a character sketch, right?
I did Tim do the count to see how many letters I've had printed at this point, and I believe this is letter number 10 in total. So
wow.
I think I only
in all G.I. Joe comics.
I think I only had one in IDW because they didn't run issue letters for the last stretch. I might be misremembering that. I might be forgetting about a letter, but I definitely had one in ARAH 282 talking about a return to Cobra Island. I had a letter in Cobra Commander issue 3, and then in new Skybound ARAH, I have had letters appear in 304, 306, 308, 309, 314, 317, 318, and 319.
Wow.
The tally.
I think I've had 3 in Real American Hero between IDW and Skybound, and I've had one in Black Panther like 15 years ago, and G.I. Joe 3 from Devil's Due.
frowny Tim.
Yes, and then of course that, like part of my sort of origin story in comics is 2 months into reading comics, I wrote a really long letter after issue like 94 came out, And I love my brother. My brother's great. But I showed it to him, and he said, "That's so long. No one's going to read it. Don't send that." And I didn't. And I should have, because someone would have definitely read it. But many years later, I got to write an email to Mark Bright saying, "Hey, in 1990, I wrote a really long letter to Bobby Chase, and half of it was just me saying how great your art was." So, folks, write in letters. Maybe you'll get printed. Make requests and make suggestions. And you never know.
And shamelessly promote your own podcast as this guy does.
Actually, no. What you should do, folks, you should send letters to the letters page, and as you should say, I get all my best G.I. Joe news from Talking Joe, a great podcast. Why, Alex Antone, you've featured host Mark Seddon so many times. Anyway, Frank Colosimo says, "Good Lord, Mark, save some room on the letters page for the rest of us who never bother to write in." Wink. Maybe it's the other. Maybe the lesson is the opposite here, folks. If Mark can do it, that shows you how there aren't so many letters being sent in, and that Alex Antone maybe can fit your letter in, because there aren't.
Yeah. If he scrapes the bottom of the barrel to let this guy in each time, then he would gladly make room for somebody else. Next time, I wonder if
I'm going to write a letter. I'm going to write a letter commenting on this one-page scene change, one-page scene change format. So, in addition to looking smart on my podcast, if my letter gets printed, I can look smart in the letters page, and people can say, I didn't notice that when I read 319. This Tim Finn fellow sure pays attention to comics.
Yeah, you should definitely do that, Tim. Greg Augustin says, "I sent a letter in on Silent Missions with a cover sketch, expecting to see it this ish. Well, I think, Greg, don't give up hope. You might see it next issue. Also, I think I sent my letter in relatively early on. So yeah, I think possibly I might have written that before Silent Missions had fully concluded. So, will your letter be featured in issue 320? When that comes out on September the 3rd, 2025. We will, of course, be discussing that on Talking Joe when it comes out. And elsewhere in the world of comics, Transformers issue 23 is out the next week, as at the time of recording, on sale August 13th. If you are listening to this as a audio only podcast, it will have only just come out. Less G.I. Joe in this particular issue, I think, because the Doc storyline seems to have concluded in the issue 22. But as always, do keep your eyes peeled for any potential G.I. Joe related events in Transformers. And then August 20th, G.I. Joe issue 10. As that Baroness and Covergirl adventure continues, as well as Void Rivals 22. Keep your eyes peeled for Cobra La appearances in the pages of that title.
Can I just point out something that may be obvious, which is one of these comics comes out every week, right? So Real American Hero is first week, Transformers is second week, Energon Universe G.I. Joe is third week, and Void Rivals is fourth week. And as a comic book store owner, I really like that, because Skybound is giving people who are into this kind of thing. I'm not saying everyone out there buys all 4 books, but give people a reason to go to the store every week.
Indeed. And besides that, you can also explore the rest of the Skybound publishing world. Invisible Man is the new series from James Tinian IV and Danny, who drew the Jinx Silent Mission and had an appearance on our show talking about that particular issue. So if you want to see next comic from Danny, that's where to find her.
And these Skybound Universal Monsters miniseries have been good.
And from the Energon Universe showrunner. Robert Kirkman is his latest book with David Finch. Many years in the making. I think they've been working on this one for about 8 years. Skin Breaker. By all accounts, it sounds like David Finch is bringing his top game to this series. So that is out in September. So might be a fun one to explore. So I think that is us done talking about 319 and all of the adverts in the back. You can find Talking Joe in the usual places. talkingjoe.co.uk has links to all of those places. If you have not liked and subscribed the YouTube channel, please do that. We're past 1,000 now, so I am paying less attention to the ever decreasing count of the gap between 1,000 and what we were on. So great that milestone has been reached. And also, if you're on Patreon member, you can find us there. And with with all of our newfound fame, we can commission some adverts specifically for our Patreon as well.
Nothing beats the Talking Joe podcast, and right now, Patreon members are getting early access to episodes and extra content. Listen now with Talking Joe, a podcast you can trust.
There we go. Patreon.com/TalkingJoe. Big thanks to Richard, Sam, Bill, Justin, Rob, Shane, Simon, Chris, Joe, Craig, letter writer Craig, I assume, Frank, Mike, D, Shane, V2. This one has a policeman's cap on the top of his head for some reason. And Infinite Entertainment plus Patrick and Gary V. They are all getting early access to content and more. Besides, Tim, what do you do when you're not talking to me about G.I. Joe comics?
Video essays on television and film. That's on YouTube at Atomic Abe. I have a brick and mortar comic book store just outside of Boston, Hub Comics, and I write about G.I. Joe at my blog, realamericanbook.com.
Very good. And just a reminder before you go that you can catch the Talking Joe Full Force double feature. So as we wrap up, you can head on over to Full Force for their latest live stream of the weekly with all of the latest G.I. Joe news. So, Tim, I think that just leaves us for you to remind the audience of one very important thing before we go.
Nobody beats Talking Joe, an international podcast.
Laters, thanks for watching.